Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-Rahmanir-Rahim. My dear students of second year MBBS, today I am going to start with the urinary system. And as you know, the urinary system consists of two kidneys, the right and left, and there are two ureters which are receiving the urine from the kidneys, and then these ureters are descending down, entering into the urinary bladder. And urinary bladder is a reservoir in which the urine is stored for some time before voiding up through the urethra. So these are the different components of the urinary tract: the paired kidneys, paired ureters, and the urinary bladder and the urethra. And in the male and the female, the urethra has got a different structure. We will study later on.
The functions of the kidney. Kidney, it is an exocrine as well as an endocrine gland. So the functions of the kidney are: the exocrine function is the production and the storage and excretion of the urine, and it also regulates the electrolyte level. And its endocrine function is there are certain hormones, the renin and erythropoietin, which is synthesized in the kidney. If we talk about the external
Anatomy of the kidney: there are paired kidneys, bean-shaped organ, 4 to 5 inches long and 2 to 3 inches wide, and there is 1 inch in thickness and found just above the waist between the peritoneum and posterior wall of abdomen.
Each kidney is a large bean-shaped organ located retroperitoneally on the posterior abdominal wall. Its substance is covered by a thin, loosely adhering capsule of dense irregular connective tissue consisting of the collagen fibers, the fibroblasts and myofibroblasts, which have got the contractile ability. On the medial side of the kidney is present a depression called hilum. This is the hilum. Anything which leaves or enters the kidneys through the hilum. So you can see that the renal artery entering into the kidney through this hilum, that is indentation or concavity on the medial side of the kidney, and renal vein is coming out of the kidney, and the ureter, it is also coming out, and then it brings the urine from the kidney to the urinary bladder, which is a temporary storage place for the urine. The urinary bladder is the reservoir for the urine for its temporary storage. The upper part of the ureter is expanded. You can see the pelvis of the kidney. This is the pelvis of the kidney. The expanded part of the ureter is called the pelvis of the kidney. It is subdivided into large and small cup-like structures which are known as the major and minor calyces. Let's talk about the external anatomy of the kidney. The paired kidney, which is a bean-shaped organ, it is 4 to 5 inches long and 2 to 3 inches wide, and its thickness is only 1 inch. It is found just above the waist between the peritoneum and posterior wall of the abdomen. It is retroperitoneal along with the adrenal glands and the ureter. The suprarenal glands are lying over the upper pole of the kidney on both sides, and it is protected by 11th and 12th ribs with the right kidney lower. The right kidney is somewhat lower than the left side of the kidney. It is a compound tubular gland if we talk about the morphological classification, and it is further divided into, if we cut a section, we will find this is the outer cortex and this is the inner medulla. These are the major and minor calyces, the minor calyces and the major calyces. Then these major and minor calyces enters into this expanded portion of the ureter, which is present in the hilum of the kidney, and this is called the pelvis of the kidney. And ureter then starts and it runs down towards the urinary bladder. On naked eye inspection of a vertical hemisection, the kidneys shows an outer reddish brown granular zone called the cortex and an inner lighter colored striated zone which is known as the medulla. The cortex appears granular because it contains the renal corpuscles, which are spherical structures and convoluted parts of the renal tubules. The reddish-brown color of the cortex is due to the fact that about 90% of the blood is passing through the kidney in the cortex. So cortex is the subcapsular reddish brown area because the 90% of the blood flows through the cortex, and we will see the renal corpuscles and the proximal and distal convoluted tubules present in the this area, that is the cortex. And in the medulla there are rays, and medulla is striated, having the collecting tubules and the ducts and the straight part of the proximal and distal tubule. So this is you can see the difference between the cortex and the medulla. Medulla consists of the medullary pyramids, and there are renal columns. So this is the renal cortex and this is the renal medulla. The medulla of the kidney gives a striated appearance because it lodges
the straight parts of the tubules.
The medulla of kidney gives a striated appearance because it lodges the parallel blood vessels and straight parts of the renal tubules which run towards the pelvis of the kidney in a radiating manner. And its color is lighter because only 10% of the blood is present in the medulla. The medullary substance of each kidney is arranged as 8 to 18 conical masses which are called the renal pyramids. The medullary substance of each kidney is arranged as 8 to 18 conical masses which are known as the renal pyramids. Base of each pyramid lies adjacent to the cortex, whereas the apex, which is known as papilla, projects into the minor calyces. So these are the minor calyces. This is papilla and this is entering into the minor calyx.
The nephron is basic structural and functional unit of the kidney. There are about 1.5 to 2 million nephrons present in the kidney. And a nephron is this is composed of the renal corpuscle, which is glomerulus, and the Bowman's capsule, which has got the visceral and parietal layers, and there is a capsular space. And then we have got the tubular part, which consists of the proximal convoluted tubules, the loop of Henle, and the distal tubule. The interstitium of the kidney, there are present between the nephrons, the ducts and the blood vessels, and the interstitium increases from the cortex 7% to medulla 20%. This is actually the connective tissue which consists of the fibroblasts and the myofibroblasts. Let's talk about the types of the nephron. The classification of the nephron is there are three types of nephron: the superficial, cortical, and there are mid-cortical, and there are juxtamedullary nephrons. Depending upon the location of their renal corpuscles, the nephrons are classified into three types. The superficial cortical, this is the superficial cortical nephron because the location of the renal corpuscle is on the outer part of the renal cortex. They have short loops of Henle, you can see, and they do not extend beyond the outer part of the renal medulla. And the mid-cortical, as its name indicates, it is intermediate nephron, and they are so named because their renal corpuscles are situated in the mid region of the cortex, and their loops of Henle are of intermediate length. And if we talk about the juxtamedullary, as its name indicates, They have got their renal corpuscles located in the deepest part of the renal cortex, just near the medulla, the juxtamedullary, in, in proximity to the base of a medullary pyramid. And they have long loops of Henle that extend deep into the medulla. The juxtamedullary nephrons, they have got 40 mm in total length. The renal corpuscles. The nephron consists of the following portions: the renal corpuscles, which filter the blood, and the renal corpuscle has two parts, the Bowman's capsule and the glomerulus, which is a globular network of capillaries inside the capsule. The renal corpuscles are spherical bodies ranging from 200 to 250 microns in diameter. Each of them has a vascular pole where the afferent arteriole enters and the efferent arteriole leaves, and a urinary pole where the proximal convoluted tubule begins. As mentioned, the renal corpuscle consists of a Bowman's capsule and a glomerulus. The Bowman's capsule, also called glomerular capsule, is in the form of a double-walled cup having an outer or parietal layer and inner or visceral layer. In between these two layers lies the capsular space, which is also called the urinary space. The parietal layer of Bowman's capsule is made up of a simple squamous epithelium and its basal lamina, which covers the outer surface of the squamous cells. At the urinary pole, the simple squamous epithelium becomes continuous with the simple cuboidal epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule here. And the visceral layer of Bowman's capsule covers the glomerulus and invests it closely. It is composed of a single layer of very specialized epithelial cells, which are called the podocytes. These are highly modified to perform a filtering function.
Now, what are the uriniferous tubules? A uriniferous tubule forms the structural and functional unit of the kidney, and it consists of two parts which form a continuous passage, although they have different embryological origin. These two parts are the nephron and the collecting tubule. Nephron is the longer part of the uriniferous tubule and is responsible for the production of urine, and nephron is derived from the metanephric blastema. So this is the nephron and these are the collecting tubules. The collecting tubule conveys the urine from the nephron to a collecting duct lying in a medullary ray, and embryologically this part of the uriniferous tubule is derived from the ureteric bud, which originates from the mesonephric duct. If we talk about the nephron, each kidney contains approximately 1.5 million nephrons, or 2 million rather. Nephron is a long epithelium-lined tube which begins blindly and ends by joining a collecting tubule. Nephron is highly tortuous for the greater part of its course and consists of several segments of different structure and function. Each nephron begins as a double-walled cup-shaped dilatation known as the Bowman's capsule. This is the Bowman's capsule. You can see this is a glomerulus, which is a tuft of capillaries. There is an afferent arteriole and there is an efferent arteriole. This is the vascular pole of the glomerulus or the Bowman's capsule, and this is the renal pole. So this is a tuft of capillary. The afferent arteriole enters into this cup-shaped structure and it divides into 4 and 5 main branches, and these main branches, the arterioles, they gives rise to the capillaries, which then again reunite to form an efferent arteriole. The visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule covers the glomerulus and invests it closely. It is composed of a single layer of specialized epithelial cells which are known as the podocytes. These are the podocytes, which are stellate or star-shaped cells, and they are modified to perform a filtering function. The renal corpuscle has two parts: the glomerular capsule, also known as the Bowman's capsule. The capillaries, which are glomeruli, it is linked with the afferent and efferent arteries. The capillary is covered by the cells. These cells are called the podocytes. The renal corpuscles includes the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule, and between these two structures is the urinary space. Here is the urinary space. You can see the simple squamous epithelium in the parietal layer of the Bowman's capsule, and then it continues with this simple cuboidal epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule. Capsule, also called glomerular capsule, is in the form of a double-walled cup having an outer or parietal layer. This is the parietal layer, this is the parietal layer, and this is the visceral layer of the Bowman's capsule. And between these two layers there is a space which is called the urinary space. This is the urinary space of the Bowman's space. The parietal layer of the Bowman's capsule is made up of a simple squamous epithelium and its basal lamina, which covers the outer surface of the squamous cells. At the urinary pole, the simple squamous epithelium becomes continuous with the simple cuboidal hair. The simple squamous epithelium, which is present in the parietal layer, it then continues with the simple cuboidal epithelium of the proximal convoluted tubule.
Podocytes.
So these are specialized cells with food processes that give off small finger-like projections known as pedicels. These projections form interdigitations with other adjacent podocyte pedicels, which give rise to slit valves or filtration slits. Together these slit valves function as a filter. They trap large molecules and particles here in order to prevent them from entering into the urinary space. What about the podocytes? Podocytes are large, irregularly star-shaped cells which share a common basal lamina with the endothelial cells of the glomerular capillaries. The cell bodies of the podocytes are located in the capsular space, 1 to 2 micron away from the basal lamina. From the cell body arises several processes. You can see this is the cell body of the podocyte, and there are these cytoplasmic extensions just like the tentacles of an octopus, and these gives rise to the further processes which are known as the foot plates or foot processes known as the pedicels. These primary processes resembling the tentacles of an octopus, and each of these processes extends towards one or more glomerular capillary loops and gives rise to numerous secondary processes which are known as the pedicels.
And there are slits in between, the filtration slits.
Electron microscope shows that a podocyte contains an irregular nucleus and its cytoplasm has got a small Golgi body, many mitochondria, a moderate amount of rough endoplasmic reticulum, and abundant free ribosomes. And there are numerous microtubules and actin filaments, and these are found in the cell body in the primary and secondary processes. And because of the presence of the actin filaments, it is indicated that the podocytes have got some contractile capability. The foot processes that the pedicels of each podocyte, these pedicels of each podocytes interdigitate with those of the neighboring podocyte. So these are interdigitating, and because of these interdigitating pedicels you can see the spaces which are known as the slits. These are the filtration slits. These spaces having an average width of 25 nanometer, and they allow the ultrafiltrate from the blood to pass into the urinary space of the Bowman's capsule. Filtration slits are not entirely open, but they are covered by membranes or the slit diaphragms, which are only 5 nanometer thick. The slit diaphragms are porous structures. Their pores have an average diameter of 6 nanometer. So due to the small size of their pores, the slit diaphragms allow small molecules to pass through them, but prevent the passage of larger molecules across the filtration barrier.
Lamina
Externa is the electron-lucent layer adjacent to the podocyte processes. It contains the adhesive glycoproteins laminin and fibronectin, which assist the paddy cells to maintain their attachment to the GBM. This layer also contains some polyanionic glycoproteins that are rich in heparan sulfate and hence specifically prevent the passage of negatively charged molecules through the GBM. The middle one is the lamina densa. It is comparatively electron dense middle layer of GBM. It contains type 4 collagen fibers and which is organized into a network and serves as a physical filter. The lamina rara interna. Lamina rara interna is the electron-lucent layer bordering on the capillary endothelium. Its composition is the same as that of the lamina rara externa. The adhesive glycoproteins of this layer help the endothelial cells of glomerular capillaries to keep their attachment to the GBM. The glomerular basement membrane serves as a molecular sieve that is capable of sorting out molecules on the basis of molecular size and charge. The GBM is impermeable to molecules having a molecular weight of more than 69,000 Daltons. In addition, the GBM does not allow those molecules to pass through it which have a highly negative charge. Let's talk about the filtration system or the barrier. This is a 3-layered system, and the materials leaving the blood and entering the urinary space must go from the glomerular capillary through number 1, the fenestrated endothelium of the glomerulus, number 2, the uniquely thick glomerular basement membrane called GBM, and number 3, the filtration slits of the podocytes, also known as the visceral layer of Bowman's capsule. In addition to providing a physical barrier for cells and large proteins, the glomerular basement membrane and the pedicels of the podocytes contain negatively charged glycosaminoglycans. So they repel the negatively charged proteins, particularly serum albumin, so it prevents the albuminuria.
All the negatively charged molecules are not allowed to pass through the GBM.
This is the filtration barrier, which is composed of the epithelial podocytes, and then we have got the glomerular basement membrane, and this glomerular basement membrane is also, it has got 3 layers, the lamina rara interna, the lamina densa and the lamina rara externa.
Collectively, this is known as the GBM, glomerular filtration.
The basal lamina of the visceral layer of Bowman's capsule that lies between the podocytes and the endothelial cells of the glomerular capillaries is called glomerular basement membrane. In children, the thickness of GBM is only 150 nanometer, but in the adults it is much thicker and has an average thickness of 300 nanometer. It is continuous, uninterrupted layer showing no gaps or pores. Electron microscope shows that the glomerular basement membrane consists of 3 layers: the lamina externa rara, the lamina densa and the lamina rara interna. Now what is the mesangium? The space between the glomerular capillaries is occupied by a special type of connective tissue called the mesangium. These are the mesangial cells. intraglomerular mesangial cells and there are extraglomerular mesangial cells. So there are two types of mesangial cells. These mesangial cells have got it consists of mesangial cells are enclosed by the basal lamina of the glomerular capillaries. They are irregular in shape and have cytoplasmic processes that extend between the capillary loops. The cytoplasm of the mesangial cells contains the common cell organelles. In addition, there are bundles of actin and myosin filaments, indicating that these cells have the ability to contract. The mesangial cells are presumed to perform the following functions. Number 1. They provide structural support for the capillaries. Their phagocytic and serve to unclog the GBM by disposing of filtration residues. Due to their contractile property, the mesangial cells may increase or decrease the blood flow through the glomerular capillaries and thus have a control over the glomerular filtration rate. The mesangial cells have been found to possess receptors for angiotensin II and atrial natriuretic peptide, which, when these receptors are stimulated, the mesangial cells contract and the glomerular flow is decreased. Glomerulus is a tuft of fenestrated capillaries connecting an afferent arteriole with an efferent arteriole. The two arterioles usually lie close together at the vascular pole of the renal. This is the afferent and efferent arteriole. This is the efferent arteriole and this is the afferent arteriole. And both these arterioles are close together at the vascular pole of the glomerulus. That is the Bowman's capsule. That is the renal corpuscle. As the afferent arteriole enters the glomerulus, it divides into 4 or 5 main branches. Each branch further divides into a number of capillaries which follow an irregularly looped course in their way towards the efferent arteriole. The looped capillaries from each main branch of the afferent arteriole tend to be grouped together. These groups are referred to as lobules of the glomerulus. And anastomosis occurs between the capillaries of a lobule and also between the capillaries of adjacent lobules. So all the capillaries eventually join to form the efferent arteriole. This is the efferent arteriole. It is to be noted that instead of draining into a venule, the glomerular capillaries drain into an arteriole. It is also noted that the efferent arteriole is smaller in diameter than the afferent arteriole, and this difference of caliber between the afferent and efferent arteriole ensures a substantial hydrostatic pressure in the glomerular capillaries, which facilitates the glomerular filtration. The fenestrations of the glomerular capillaries are larger, that is 70 to 90 nanometers in diameter, and they are more numerous than the pores of fenestrated capillaries found in other parts of the body. In addition, the pores of the glomerular capillaries are not spanned by any diaphragm. All these fenestrations allow the plasma to pass through the wall of the glomerular capillary.
JG apparatus.
This apparatus comprises the following 3 components: the macula densa of the distal convoluted tubule, juxtaglomerular cells in the wall of the afferent arteriole of the glomerulus, and number 3, extraglomerular mesangial cells, which are located between the afferent and efferent arterioles of the glomerulus. So this is the juxtaglomerular apparatus. You can see the macula densa. This is the macula densa cells. Macula densa is a specialized region of the distal convoluted tubule at its commencement. where the tubules comes in contact with the afferent and efferent arterioles at the vascular pole of the renal corpuscle. In this region, the simple cuboidal epithelium of the distal convoluted tubule shows several modifications. The cells are tall, columnar, and the Golgi apparatus of these cells is located in a subnuclear position in contrast with the supranuclear position in other parts of the tubule. The closely packed nuclei of the thin, tall columnar cells give this region of the tubule a darker or denser appearance. That's why this is known as the macula densa, that is dense spot. Macula densa functions as a sensor of osmolarity of fluid in the distal convoluted tubule. A low sodium ion concentration in the tubular fluid stimulates the macula densa to produce various chemical mediators like nitric oxide and prostaglandins, which act upon the juxtaglomerular cells in a paracrine manner and stimulate them to secrete renin,
which is a hormone which controls the blood pressure.
These are the cells which are columnar cells, and these are the modified cells in the
proximal part of the distal convoluted tubule at its commencement.
Adjacent to the macula densa, the wall of the afferent arteriole. Adjacent to the macula densa, the wall of the afferent arteriole and occasionally the efferent arteriole contains modified smooth muscles. And these smooth muscle cells, they show certain modifications, and these are called the juxtaglomerular cells. The juxtaglomerular cells have a large size and their nuclei are spherical. The cytoplasm of juxtaglomerular cells is full of granules which do not stain by the ordinary H&E stain but can be demonstrated by special staining techniques. The juxtaglomerular cells secrete a hormone called renin, which is an acid protease that catalyzes the cleavage of the plasma protein angiotensinogen to angiotensin 1. These cells are innervated by postganglionic sympathetic nerve fibers, which are believed to stimulate renin secretion. Then extraglomerular mesangial cells. Extraglomerular mesangial cells, also called the Lacis cells, form a cushion of cells between the afferent and efferent arterioles of the renal corpuscle.
These are the cells which are in between the two afferent and efferent arterioles.
The extraglomerular mesangial cells, also called the Lacis cells, form a cushion of cells between the afferent and efferent arterioles of the renal corpuscles. Structurally, these cells resemble the intraglomerular
mesangial cells.
Structurally, these cells resemble the intraglomerular mesangial cells with which they are contiguous, and the functional significance of the Lacis cells is not well understood. Let's talk about the blood and the nerve supply of the kidney. Abundantly supplied with blood vessels, it receives 25% of the resting cardiac output via the renal arteries. The functions of the different capillary beds: glomerular capillaries where filtration of blood occurs, vasoconstriction and vasodilatation of afferent and efferent arterioles produce large changes in the renal filtration. Peritubular capillaries that carry away reabsorbed substances from the filtrate. Vasa recta supplies the nutrients to the medulla without disrupting its osmolarity. Blood enters the kidney through the renal artery, which branches into smaller segmental arteries. Each segmental artery branches into interlobar arteries. These then course as delineating renal pyramids The vessels further divide into arcuate arteries. These then travel in the cortical medullary boundary. The arcuate arteries divide as well into small arteries called interlobular arteries. The renal artery enters into the kidney through the hilum, and then it divides into the segmental arteries. Segmental arteries gives rise to the interlobar arteries, and interlobar arteries gives rise to these arcuate arteries, which are in between the medulla and the cortex. Then interlobular arteries, and then we have got the afferent arterioles, which are microscopic, and they enter into the glomerulus, and the glomerular capillaries are given by these afferent arterioles. They then gives rise to the efferent arterioles, which comes out of the Bowman's capsule. As the efferent arterioles, they pass through the cortex. They gives rise to the peritubular capillaries, which are the vasa recta. The vasa recta, they join together to give rise to the interlobular veins. They then become the arcuate veins, and then interlobar veins, and the segmental veins, and the renal vein. And renal vein comes out of the hilum. The glomerular capillaries are formed between the afferent and efferent arterioles. The efferent arterioles gives rise to the peritubular capillaries and vasa recta. This is the peritubular capillary and the vasa recta. The peritubular capillaries and the vasa recta, they are parallel with the. So this is the blood supply to the nephron. You can see the afferent arteriole entering into the Bowman's capsule and gives rise to the glomerulus, and then these capillaries unite together to gives rise to the efferent arteriole. Efferent arterioles, then they become the peritubular capillaries and the vasa recta.
In this picture you can see the histology of the renal tubule and collecting duct. The proximal convoluted tubule has got the simple cuboidal with brush border of microvilli that increases the surface area. And if we talk about the descending limb of loop of Henle, there is simple squamous epithelium. And in the ascending limb of loop of Henle, simple cuboidal to low columnar epithelium. And it is also forming the juxtaglomerular apparatus where it makes contact with the afferent arteriole. Macula dentha is the special part of the ascending limb. Then distal convoluted tubule and the collecting ducts. The simple cuboidal composed of principal and intercalated cells which have microvilli. So this is the microscopic structure or the histology of the renal tubule and collecting duct. Thank you very much. This was all about the histology of the kidney. Now you will see some of the video clips, and then I will revise again a little brief part of the histology of the renal system along with the histology of the ureter, the urinary bladder and the urethra.